Welcome to the Mojo for Musicians podcast from Manny Cabo Media, where we dig deep into today's top strategies to help you take your music career to the next level, along with real, raw, and uplifting conversations with industry professionals that are making moves, making a difference, and making the best versions of themselves to inspire you to do the same. And if you have a voice with a powerful message to share with the world, then head on over to tinyurl/Mojo Official Discord for the best community of voices in the metaverse. Support for the Mojo for Musicians podcast comes from Stedman, tools for the studio and beyond, because your voice deserves to be heard. Sennheiser, inspired by music. And Cranium, scientifically designed products for bald, shaved, and buzzed heads. So get your head in the game and own your dome. And now, here's your host, Manny Cabo. All right, welcome back, everyone, my Mojo Maniacs, to another incredible episode of Mojo for Musicians, the source of inspiration for my ecosystem of artists. And as always, I want to thank all of my sponsors at Sennheiser, Stedman, and of course, Cranium. Without you guys, I definitely wouldn't be here doing what I am today. And today, I've got another rock star of a guest, and I call her a rock star, not only in the kitchen, but in front of the camera, behind the camera. And she's been on some incredible shows, definitely flirted with more than her 15 minutes of fame. We're talking hours of material. You know, she's been on Top Chef, Iron Chef, Beat Bobby Flay, Chopped, every major cooking show that's out there she's been on. So without further hesitation, let's bring on our featured guest, Leia, or Leia. I call her Leia, of course. We just had this discussion because I'm a big Star Wars freak, so I had to call her there. Gaccione, what's up, Leia? And welcome to Mojo for Musicians. Good. How you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
I was excited too because I know you've been on one of our counterparts show, and I love him to death. Which I know you've discussed many things with him as well, and we are Jersey peeps, so we got to look out for one another. Correct?
Absolutely. You got to stick together for sure.
Exactly. So I had no idea. You know, you're literally in my backyard. You're in Morristown, and I've frequented that town many a time. You know, I've performed at the Grasshopper. I don't know if it's still called the Grasshopper on the Green, I think.
Grasshopper's still there and kicking.
Right. I've performed at the Mayo Performing Arts Center. That's a great venue too. So I've definitely I've flirted with Morristown. It's such a great town. So happy to hear that you are flourishing in that town, and that'll be one of my segue questions. So we'll get into that, but I got to tell you, for me, cooking has always been an art form. You know, I consider you guys rock stars, you know, and nowadays on TV, you're kind of like edified because now they kind of like look like me. They like nails painted, tattoos. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys got what, like Guy Fieri, one of those with the spiky hair, you know, Rachel Ray. So there's a lot of TV personalities. So I guess my first question to you, where did that initial obsession, I know you talked about in reading about you know, your childhood was pretty much filled up with cooking shows like, you know, I think you mentioned Julia Child. I remember that show. I remember, you know, Yan Can Cook. So I was there with you, you know. And what was it that started that path for you?
You know, my mom was a single mom, and so she always had like 2 or 3 jobs at a time, and we would be upstairs and my grandpa would watch us and he would always have on like PBS, and that's kind of where it started, by watching the Frugal Gourmet and Julia Child and Yan Can Cook. And then the Food Network came on the scene, and Emeril Lagasse was there, and the Two Hot Tamales. And so I think that that's kind of what was the catalyst to pursue this as a career. But my mom always cooked for us. Like, we were never really picky kids. She always made us asparagus and broccoli. And we were like adventurous eaters. We weren't scared to try things as kids. So I think that that also was probably where the initial love started.
I think that's it has to be mandatory. I mean, you got to love food, right? I don't think I could ever become a cook. I would be like 500 pounds. I would eat myself out of inventory. So I think that's imperative.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle on a daily basis.
I'm sure it is, you know. And so your mom certainly had a huge impact on your cooking career, from what I gather. Because sometimes, you know, it's the grandmother. You know, sometimes it's watching TV, but go ahead. It was your mom.
She definitely had an impact on just seeing her work really hard,
Mm,
seeing her hold down multiple jobs to support her family
mm,
and just go for it every day, like that's where I get my work ethic from. I get it from her, from watching her raise my brother and I. And in this industry, you put in a lot of long hours
yeah.
and there's no excuses. And if you're sick, you go in. And if you're tired, you go in. And if you're hungover, which doesn't happen very often anymore these days, but you still go in and you get through
You
it
mean
because you
chefs don't
have
get
to.
hungover? Chefs don't drink wine or liquor or beer after a long.
There is the occasional indulging,
I'm being
but like
facetious, of course. You know that much.
since COVID, I've actually like made a lot of changes in my life, and I still like to have a night of overindulging once in a while, but there are few and far between now.
Yeah. No, I mean that's it really is. I only see that as a challenge, but as I alluded to before, I think cooking, sometimes I look at these masterpieces and what goes into it and how do they dictate what spices and what ingredients are going to go in. It's just mind-boggling. So the reason why I had you on, this podcast is about musicians, right? But what I do enjoy, I love taking the background stories of people that are in the business. Now, you've been on multiple TV shows, right? So technically you're a celebrity chef, right? And I wanted to understand what possessed you to go on TV. I get asked that question all the time when I was on The Voice and then La Voz and touring. For me, it was pretty evident. I love being on stage. I love singing. And now, because there are TV shows that focus and highlight the artistry of cooking, I'm assuming that was your impetus, or did you get pushed like I did with my friends? Oh, Leah, you got to get on TV. You're an amazing cook. You got to show off your skills. Was it from that perspective, or did you yourself be like, this is a big shot. This is an opportunity. I need to showcase what I'm all about to the world. Which side of the coin were you on?
Well, it's funny because when you grow up watching these shows, like I think deep down inside, you're like, oh, maybe that could be me
Mm,
someday.
of course.
But what are the odds? Like one in a million, right?
Yeah.
So I was just really fortunate to have worked for Bobby Flay, and I actually told him that I didn't want to be on Iron Chef. I told him I was too
Mm.
nervous, and somebody got sick or had to back out, and so it was like, Leah, you're doing it. And I was like,
Wow.
shit.
You gotta take
Um,
that advantage. You can't,
yeah.
that's like the universe telling you, hello, we're giving this to you.
Yeah. So I was really nervous the first one I did. I like cut my hand very badly. The medics had to come out. I was tied up for like 5 minutes because I kept bleeding through the bandages and the glove
No.
was filling
I'm
up
sure
with
the
blood. It
camera
was like,
crew love that.
yeah, very dramatic, which is
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, of course, of course.
But then after that first one, I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I want to do more. And so I love it now. Like it is addictive. It's adrenaline. And I think that just by being in this industry, like every day,
Mm,
you're kind of gearing up for a challenge, right?
right.
Like maybe it's not like a 20-minute you need to cook four appetizer
Sure.
challenge, but like it's a challenge every day and you are always in a time crunch and you're always trying to figure it out and think on your toes. So I feel like my career has gotten me to this point and readied me to compete in these competitions, which now I I'm obsessed with.
You're like
There's
old
so
hat
many.
now. I mean, you've been on what, 4 or 5? And I was going to segue that into later, but you're also pretty competent. I don't know if you know, but I'm also an editorial photographer. You're also a producer. So being behind the camera has also been something that, you've partaken in. So that's pretty amazing. And I understand what you're saying, because once you're on there for the first time, it's kind of overwhelming, right? You're like, you don't know what to expect. You don't know what the protocol is. Am I going to screw up? And am I going to forget the recipe? What if they throw something on me that I have no idea how I'm going to put together or put forth this dish? But once you've been on there a few times, like yourself, this is like old hat now. Now you can go on and start training people on what to expect on one of these shows. And I think that's pretty advantageous, because not only do they get to understand you as the cook, understand your style of cooking, but more importantly, in what I feel is the most crucial element of anyone that you could offer your fan base or your friends or your audience in this case, is your authenticity, what you're all about, that personality, what or who is, should I say, Leia, aside from being in the kitchen. People love that. It's
Yeah.
engaging. And I'm sure now you're in the restaurant, people are like, "Oh my God, I saw you on TV. It's amazing. You're really cool. You're really not like a bitch." Or whatever.
Yeah, no, I know. It's
Because
it's funny that you bring that up because I think that authenticity is one of the most important things
yes,
like in life. Like no matter what, you should just always be yourself. Like
right.
what you see on TV is what you see in the restaurant, is what you see in my living room. Like the way that I am is the way that I am, and that's what you're going to get all the time.
Good for you.
And I think people respect that and they connect to that and they can relate to that, right?
They really can because, at the end of the day, you don't have to pretend to be someone. It's impossible. It's exhausting to be someone that you're not 24 hours a day. And second of all, in your business now, and let's be realistic, it's difficult for women nowadays, evidenced by what's going on TV. So it's kind of like you're walking on eggshells. So you want to put forth your best effort. Integrity is a big deal. I personally think we need more women in any industry. We men, we screw shit up all the time. So that's just my personal perspective. But it is challenging. But integrity for me is a huge element in me endorsing someone. I don't care what they do. Just by being real with me, I'll keep coming eating at your place. Never mind if you're not there or not. But I know your restaurant is an extension of who you are. And that's a big deal
Right.
for me.
Right. And it's like if you either you like it or you don't. If you don't need to come back. You don't need to watch.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk. And if you do, then great. Like,
Yeah.
listen, I know everybody's not for everybody, and that's okay. And I'm
100%.
okay with that. It takes a little while to swallow that, especially with owning a business and
Sure.
and having people give their feedback. Like it's just sometimes it's not for everybody
Right.
and you have to just accept that.
Well, even more so, I'd rather you tell me, Manny, I mean, I don't like your food, but I think you're awesome. I could live with that. I could always work on a plate or customize something. But if you tell me you're not coming to eat because you think I'm an asshole,
Right.
that would bother me, or I'm doing something wrong, and that in itself is a crucial element for me. That's a game changer. So I'm
Well,
glad.
I'm sure like you can relate. Like if somebody
Yeah,
talks about your art, your music, your songs, your creations, that's like your baby. That's
yeah,
your brainchild. You put that out there for the world and
of
it
course.
makes you vulnerable. You know what I mean? So for somebody to say something negative about what you've created, it's a
Mm,
little bit of like a dagger to the heart. So like
mm,
for me, it's, it, the bad things are not easy.
yeah.
It's not easy to read, but you have to take it with a grain of salt.
And yeah, absolutely. And it's not for everybody. Being in this industry, especially now that I can include you in the entertainment industry, it's not for the faint of heart. Now, for me, it's actually pretty simple. I don't get bothered by criticisms. When I was on The Voice, I was 45. I was getting hammered. I mean, hammered, crucified. Who's this has been? Who's this bald guy? Get a real job painting your nails. You got a wife and kid, bro. What's going on with that? I could ignore that easily. That didn't bother me. And one of the things the producers would tell everybody, guys, whatever you do, don't read the comments. I mean, they had it posted everywhere, especially because, most of the contestants are a little young, 17, 18, 19. So that was that pressure as well.
Mm,
And what do you think they did? They read the comments. But
mm,
I was there. It was cool for me because being on The Voice, and please share your perspective as well. For me, sure, it was about singing. I did it for me. But on the show, I found my purpose, which is to use and implement my voice to empower, to educate, to inspire my ecosystem of artists, to answer those questions that I couldn't find. Now, for you, obviously, now that you're a producer, that you've been on these TV shows, what did you gain out of them? Aside from the obvious notoriety, what were some of the cool things that you acquired in your arsenal of being the chef?
that's such a great
Mm,
question. Well, I think a couple things. I think that it kind of validates you
mm,
in a sense because you are in a part of these competitions with a lot
sure.
of other talented people and imposter syndrome is a real thing
Mm,
and especially as a female in the food industry, like
yeah,
I think that it runs even deeper. So I think just like gaining some confidence and saying like I can hold my own next to these other chefs who I admire very
yeah,
much. That's one thing. And then I think like especially on my most recent on Top Chef, I was actually very very sick the day we started filming and by day 2 I had like 102-degree fever
wow.
and I had some other really frightening symptoms that were kind of debilitating. And like, did I get eliminated because I made mistakes, or did I get eliminated because I couldn't stand up?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't know. That's debatable.
That'll
But
always bother you, by the way. I've been there.
right.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But like, you have to just like accept whatever life throws at you. Now, I didn't expect for it to go that way, but you just have to accept that that's what happened. And we are exactly where we're supposed to be. And things go down the way that they're supposed to go down. And like, I'm okay with that. You know, I'm not beating myself up about it. I am so grateful to have had that experience. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But I think it takes a lot of like deep searching to be able to say, like, this is something that I didn't want to happen and it happened. And how can we make this be positive?
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that's one of the things that I love teaching. And for me, I'm going through a really difficult time right now. You know, I'm not going to disclose much, but let's say that things have been rather capricious, unpredictable. You know, a lot of loss in my life. You know, Hurricane Ida wiped away 25 years of my livelihood. We just lost my wife's grandmother yesterday, her father,
sorry.
my dad to
I'm
COVID.
so sorry.
Yeah, and believe me, the reason why I'm highlighting that is because it's imperative to talk about these things. And what you're talking about, I call it pivoting. How are we going to take this situation and how are we going to analyze it in a way that's not just a debilitating, detriment, right? We need to just view them as challenges, and how and what are we going to learn from these challenges to improve ourselves? The way I look at it, to what happened to you, it's pretty simple. That wasn't meant for you. You were meant for something additional. That chapter closed. That's just a way of saying, you know what, Leia, we need to get you better, get you focused. People saw you. Now let's move on to your next journey. And some people have a really difficult time of moving on. They feel like, no, this was it. This was the break. But if you think that way, that's just a limiting belief that we all have. I know I've had it. I've been a culprit. I'll raise my hand. I'll be the first one to say. But, as age happens and maturity kicks in, you start realizing there'll be more opportunities. Hey, I was good enough to actually get on the show. That's what one of the things I try to tell the contestants. I had to beat out 70,000 other contestants globally. Then I did it again in Spanish. People have no idea. That's a big challenge. So the fact that you want a show means you already won. Go home and just work on the next journey, improve your skills. But we just focus on the lack, and we just hang there. And why do we do that? We're like masochists to ourselves, right?
Yeah, like a few years ago, I actually got divorced, and I was like in a really rough place. And a friend of mine had a yoga studio, and she was like, you should come and start to practice yoga. And I always thought that yoga was super boring. Like my job, the way I live, it's like everything is fast.
Sure.
Like I want action. I want it to be hard. And so I started practicing yoga. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from yoga is like, despite these bad things in your life, we all have bad things in our life. Like we really need to focus on the positive and be grateful for the positive on a daily basis.
100%.
And it's such a better place to be in, and like to live your life like that, to come from a place of like everything that I have instead of everything that I lack.
Right.
Like it's so much easier to be happy, right?
And living in the moment. Like right now, me talking to you, that's important. That's my priority. I'll worry about what's happening later when I get there. Living in the moment is huge. I meditate as well. So good for you. I mean, yoga is a big deal. Breathing is an essential part of our tranquility. And I wish more people globally would adopt that. Right. And I know you agree because you feel totally different. I know when I go.
Yeah, it's changed my life.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, right? And it's so simple to do.
Yeah, it's super simple, and it really doesn't take much. I think I'm actually going to go to it's like 95. You're in Jersey. It's like almost 100 degrees outside, but I think I'm going to go to a hot yoga class this afternoon.
Oh my God. It's just like, you know what? I don't mind the heat. I really don't. Dry heat is cool, but New Jersey, I don't have to. I'm preaching to the choir. It's like this humidity. It's like you walk out, I'm already sweating just thinking about it.
I know.
But
it was
yeah.
115 degrees in the kitchen yesterday.
Definitely not
Brutal.
it's not my cup of tea by no stretch. Listen, talk to me about Bobby Flay. Like, I'm big on mentors. I believe that everyone should have a mentor, especially when they finally recognize what their true talent is. So talk to me about that, because you mentioned that in passing, and I read about it. I mean, that's not a bad mentor to have, especially in a field where you're like completely and utterly passionate about now.
Yeah. Like I said, you don't really think that like where I grew up in Passaic, New Jersey. We had everything that we needed, but we weren't like, we weren't very well off. My mom was a single mom.
Sure.
I didn't have a pair of jeans probably until I was like 13 years old. Like I said, we had everything that we needed. So growing up watching these cooking shows on TV and kind of like, really glamorizing people who cook on TV, you never think that as this little girl from Passaic, New Jersey, that you're
Right.
gonna work for one of
Right,
them.
right.
And I am lucky to say that I did work for one of them. I worked with Bobby for almost 8 years.
Wow.
I owe him so much. I have so much gratitude for him. He has given me so much opportunity and he has shared so much knowledge with me. And he has taught me how to be a teacher. He's taught me how to be a manager of people, how to treat employees fairly, how to work with other people, how to run not only a kitchen, but a restaurant.
Wow.
I mean, I really learned a lot in working for him for such a long time. I'm only able to be where I am now for having that experience.
I'm glad that you said that. It's really refreshing because, for us in the entertainment business, we've always heard you do not want to meet your idols. And for you to tell me that he instilled the quality of working with other people, that's a big deal because most of these cats, like you see guys on TV like Gordon and all these cats, with the zillion, Michelin stars or however you guys call it, they can be pretty brutal. Now, sometimes they play it up for the camera, but was it like that with Bobby from time to time? Or, you be honest, man. I'm just curious.
No, he was always, listen, I would never work for somebody who was awful.
Gotcha.
And I worked for him for a really long time. So don't get me wrong. He's a chef. Right. Just as I am. And we have our moments for sure. But like everybody has their moments, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, he was always great.
That's awesome. Yeah, because sometimes it does get a little precarious, if you will, and you have to know your limitations as well. But again, I have to stress how refreshing that is because I've had scenarios where I'm like, dude, I would never work with this guy. I've met some amazing people. I have the luxury and pleasure of working with multiple Grammy and Emmy award-winning producers and engineers. Some of them are just difficult, for use of a better word, and some of them are just like sweethearts. Right? Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead.
I mean, I've met some people who are assholes too.
There you go. Okay, fine. I'm glad you said it.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's life though.
Right.
Most people are lovely. And then you got a couple bad apples and you're right. You say to yourself, I'm never going to work with this person. And I've had a few interactions like that or a few encounters with like celebrity chefs who I've met, 15 times and they're like, oh, who are you? And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I get it. Yeah, there's no need for that.
Pay attention. Just be a good human being,
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Just be a good human being.
And there's so much competition. Like, there's no time to be like, the Guns N' Roses of rock and roll back in the day. Nobody wants to deal with a diva anymore, which is, let me get to my last question. See, I told you it'd be painless. Now, this is a two-part question, right? And you could wrap it up as quick as you like, however you want to answer this, but why Morristown? Coming from a person, who's flirted with Las Vegas and Connecticut and New York City. I mean, there is an abundance of opportunity, locations there. Why Morristown? And the last question is, what's your mojo? What keeps you going? What keeps you in the culinary arts? Because let's face it, I know it's a difficult industry. Being a chef is not easy because you have to understand what you're doing. You have to apply, the ingredients of not only life, but also in the kitchen, of course. But why Morristown? You had so many places to consider. And not saying that that's bad. I love Morristown, but just why did you stick in the Garden State?
I think there could have been again, life takes you where it takes you, right? So like I actually loved Vegas. I think people have a real misconception about Vegas being like this big party town, but
they do.
There's actually like this beautiful landscape there. And when you get off of the strip, there's actually a great restaurant scene there. Would I have liked to stay out there? Yes, but life didn't happen that way. So I came back to Jersey. And you know what? New York City It's New York City. It's big and I love New York.
Right.
New York is magical and I don't care how many times I drive in through the Lincoln Tunnel and I get into Times Square when it's all lit up, like that shit is fucking magic.
I know.
So there is so much such like a special quality about New York City, but
Yeah.
I'm a Jersey girl.
Yeah.
And so when it was time to look for a space, we started looking in Jersey. And another mentor of mine, Carl Ruiz, actually showed me the spot in Morristown. And I had only been to Morristown for my 30th birthday before that. So it just was, something that I really couldn't pass up. And I'm very glad that it worked out this way because I actually moved to Morristown 4 years ago. I work here, I live here. It's a great community
Yeah.
that I am very proud to be a part of. And there's a lot of love here. So I like it.
Nice. It is. It's a beautiful town.
Yeah, it's good. Like I love walking in the morning with my dog and getting a cup of coffee and seeing a couple people that I know, having a little chat outside.
That's great.
It's real. It feels good,
I,
right?
I actually teach in Morristown. I teach us part-time little photography classes here at the charter school. Even that's
Oh,
great for me. It's really gratifying. Yeah, it
you
really
got to
is.
stop in. You got to stop in.
You
And
know what?
grab
I was just
something
about
to
to
eat.
say that. Answer my last question, then we'll talk about because I definitely have to go visit you now. Are you kidding me? That's a
Yeah,
no-brainer.
for sure. Definitely. So the mojo that keeps me going. Well, I love this industry. Like
Mm,
you have to be kind of psychotic to do this, I think.
I would think so. Yeah.
Because like working even Sunday, I worked 12 and a half hours. It was 115 degrees in the kitchen. I
Wow.
sweat through all of my layers. Like it was, and it's a long day. You're on your feet.
Yeah.
It is physically challenging and mentally challenging, but I thrive in this chaotic environment of controlled chaos.
And that's why I ask. Talk about that for 1 second because I feel you, I get it, I understand, but I want our listeners to know that it does take that deep, underlying and innate passion to do the things that we love because it's hard. So go ahead, please
Yeah.
elaborate on that.
Yeah, you have to, like I always tell my staff that like you have to have a fire in yourself that drives you to do the right thing when nobody else is looking and that pushes you because you're constantly trying to keep up with the tickets and get the food out in a timely manner and make sure
Sure.
you're ready for dinner service and make sure that your station is clean. So it's a race and I as hard as it is, like I thoroughly love it.
That's
I
awesome.
love my job.
So,
I love the rush. I love cooking. Most of the time I like dealing with people. But like it's just fun. We have a fun time and it's a family. Like I come from a broken home and every
yeah.
restaurant that you work in, we spend so much time together that we innately become family.
Yeah, it's true.
And so that's a real draw for me. I really can't imagine doing I mean at this point I'm pretty screwed because there's no turning back now.
You could always start over, but why would you want to? I get it. There's no
Yeah.
way I'm going back. I've invested way too much time, patience, money, you name it, every element that's out there.
Exactly.
I feel you.
Yeah, there's moments though, like a few weeks ago, there was a table who was leaving, and
Yeah.
I said goodbye to them, and they looked like shocked, which is still like a weird position for me to be in. And I was
Mm.
like, "Are you guys kidding?" I'm like, "It's just me," you know what I mean? And they were just so sweet, and like in that moment, I was like, "Wow, how lucky am I?" That these people are dining in my
Yeah.
restaurant, that I get to work with these people every
Mm.
day that have helped me build this business. And like, I'm just so lucky.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky that this is my life.
It's so
And that's
humbling.
really what the mojo is.
I feel you. It really is because it truly is. It's a humbling feeling because these are the people that provide our sustenance. You in the kitchen and people eating your plate and telling you this was magnifique, and me, people telling me when I'm on stage, you rock the house. You have to appreciate that. You give back to the people that actually take care of you. Because
Right.
if it
It's a
were
cycle. You give to
yeah,
them, they give to you. You give to them, they give to you. It's constant.
100%, 100%. I'm glad you touched upon that. But we have come to the, as they say, the winter seasons of this. So I want to thank you. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, I wish you much luck, much abundance, many more incredible meals, more TV shows. So please, at this point, I want you to share with us, how do people find you? How do people go down and visit you, rock in that kitchen?
You could come to 90 South Street in Morristown, New Jersey. We have an open kitchen, so just pop in the back and say hi. You would find me on social media on Instagram at South and Pine or at Leia Gaccione, and just drop me a line.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Leah. It has been a blast. We definitely have to do this again. And now, when we get off here, we got to figure out how I'm going to get up there because you know what? I eat like a gabon, like an animal. So
We got you covered.
yes, so I'm definitely going to make my way out there. So thanks again. It's been a pleasure. And let's do this again real soon. Maybe after your next TV show. Who knows?
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care.
This has been a Mojo for Musicians podcast. If you're a musician, industry professional, or a voice with a powerful message and wanting to share your mojo and stories of success with our listeners, or simply share some feedback on today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email at info@mannycabo.com. And don't forget to join the Mojoverse on Discord for the most powerful community of voices in the metaverse at tinyurl/Mojo Official Discord. Thanks for listening.